Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company, coming to you with the 2024 Breitling Chronomat NFL Collection. This is a new collaboration between Breitling and the National Football League of the United States. 104 years of the NFL marked this year, 2024, and to celebrate, there will be 104 examples made of each team's unique Breitling Chronomat 42. So 104 examples times 32 teams, there will be 3,328 watches, but we have the colors as well as the logos of every single one of the teams. So though these watches are mechanically identical, they have very different character. And I should mention that many of these teams are everywhere the 1916 Company is. Our primary headquarters is out of Philadelphia, so here we have the Philadelphia Eagles. We also have an office in Denver, so you can visit our Denver locations and root for the Denver Broncos. We also have a Scottsdale, Arizona location, so if you are partial to that part of the world, you can root for the Cardinals and wear this particular Chronomat 42. We also, through Radcliffe, now the 1916 Company, have locations down in Baltimore, so we have the Baltimore Ravens. Not to be outdone, our flagship individual boutique is in New York, where you can cheer for the Giants. And finally, out on the West Coast, I will be heading out there in just a few days to Southern California, where they cheer for the LA Rams. So, as you can see, many of these NFL teams are everywhere we are. So I'm going to stick with the Eagles for now because I have a feeling the rouleau bracelet-equipped version will be the most popular. I should mention that you can get a rubber strap with a single-fold trigger-actuated deployment clasp, or you can get the rouleau bracelet that has been an icon of the Chronomat series since 1983. We're going to do our fit and feel using the bracelet. So right here we have the Chronomat 42. The Chronomat was relaunched in a vintage style back in 2020, and as you can see here, we have the 2017 Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, a lovely green dial to match. And then on the reverse side, I'll remove this little packing sticker since all of these have just come to me courtesy of the good folks at Breitling. There is a NFL League logo on the reverse side. The reverse of the watch is going to be interchangeable from example to example, as well the fit, 42 millimeters in diameter by 15.6 millimeters thick. They are 50.2 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and although the space between the lugs is 22 millimeters, you can see that the bracelet is actually tapered to extend a little bit broader than the lug spacing. So if you want this to match up perfectly, you probably want to get the Breitling bracelet or Breitling OEM strap just so everything lines up. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see I don't have the wrist of a lineman, but I can fit this watch just fine. At 42, it's not as huge as the Chronomats of yore, and we'll even look down the barrel right there. You can see I've got a little bit of clearance. I think you could pull this off on a 15 centimeter circumference wrist, and it is reasonably thin in profile. It's not going to fit underneath the tightest of dress sleeves, but a jersey or a jacket should be just fine. Taking a look at the rouleau bracelet, this is one of those features of the watch from the 1980s that you remember as being sort of characteristic of the Chronomat in the period. Things like the rider tabs on the bezel and the onion-style crown, and the rouleau bracelet comprised of many individual small, short cross-section articulated links. You can see there are some polished intermediates. That is a very flexible and, due to the number of removable links, very tailorable bracelet. You can also see it as a twin trigger deployment, so it's going to stay shut unless you press both of those triggers. It's not a sequential close. Both sides are Breitling branded, albeit in different fashion. It is very comfortable, and if you don't like the feel of large, heavy, rigid bracelets, this is really going to be for you because of the degree of flexibility. Now, the crown is a screw down, and as you can see on the reverse of the watch, we have quite a bit of water resistance, 200 meters for this 104-piece limited edition Philadelphia Eagles. We also have a very finely calibrated 120-click unidirectional dive-style bezel. So while the Chronomat is often described as an aviation chronograph and was developed in conjunction with the Italian Frecce Tricolore, it is properly sort of a hybrid of a dive watch and a pilot's watch. Now, the way that makes sense is that we have this bezel here that's unidirectional, so you can't accidentally extend your dive, only shorten it. We'll do a quick lume shot so you can see that the luminescent pearl is quite large and generous, and you can read it relative to the minute hand. You've got those lovely throwback style hour indices, and you can see that the sub-registers are also luminescent, so you can use the chronograph functions in the dark. You also have the running seconds, so you know if your dive style watch is still running in the dark and the depths. One thing I really like about this bezel is that it's high polish, which gives it a lustrous and upscale look, but it's also got the rider tabs, which makes it really easy to grip when your hands might be wet, sweaty, or gloved, as in the NFL. You can also see that it's a captive bezel. So these little assembly screws in profile, they're not just ornamental. These are not skeuomorphic. They actually hold the bezel to its flange. So unlike a snap-on bezel, which can be snapped off by violence, this has to be dismantled. It cannot be popped off by accident. The crown is a screw down, so you get an extra element of security. There's a hacking seconds function. And then, so you can rapidly set the date. You can see that there is also a quick set date that allows you to fly through the individual dates if you want to make a correction should you encounter an irregular length month or should the watch come to a halt for some reason. Now, the dial is very upscale. As you can see, the Breitling logo as well as the indices are applied, which is a nice feature because printed dials tend to be fairly flat or vintage. This feels very modern and opulent. We've got a flange outboard. You can see a double-faceted rayholt that acts as a tachymeter. So you can use the chronograph and the tachymeter scale to gauge the speed of an object. Now, if you want to time a runner on a return, or you want to clock a prospect while scouting, you're going to have to add some mental decimals if you want to use this to gauge the speed of human beings on a football field. But if you're good with mental decimals, it is possible. You can also see the inner flange, what's called a decimeter. This is not as common, but the 100-point scale once upon a time had popular buy-in, principally in the British military, but it's not something you see too often anymore. A decimeter 100 calibration scale, sometimes known as a scientific scale, an uncommon but still occasionally used reference. We will align our little date down there. Now, taking a look at the movement, this is Breitling's in-house caliber B01. This first debuted back in 2009 on the Chronomat series, and although not initially designed with display casebacks in mind, it actually is a very good-looking movement that's nicely sized for a fairly large watch. You could see that it has a balance that uses a combination of Edelchron and then a micrometric regulator of Breitling's own design. It's an automatic winder with a 70-hour power reserve, a 4 hertz beat rate, so 8 beats per second, pivots on 47 joules. It's adjusted in 5 positions. It is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, so this is a very precise watch as a timekeeper. Now, you can also see, because it's a fairly good looking movement, that the column wheel is exposed. The column wheel is the function selector that adds that satisfying, crisp, tactile element to the chronograph pusher. You hear it, you feel it. Now, there's also a vertical clutch. The vertical clutch allows engagement to the chronograph without any jump or stagger to the seconds hand. There's no extraneous movement. Plus, you can leave it engaged on a continuous basis, and there will be no additional wear or tear to the watch. The vertical clutch doesn't create any additional wear and tear. We have lovely tone-on-tone registers, so all these dials feature a treatment that gives you a high contrast. Some of them are more of a lacquered tone, some are a little bit more metallic. You can see right here with the Baltimore Ravens, you've got a very metallic blue reflective surface, and you can see that each chronograph seconds hand does feature a customized coloration. We have team colors as well for the sub-registers, which add an element of nuance and individuality to each version of this watch. We also have both the rouleau bracelet and the strap a little bit more lively color. So you might pick based on your favorite team. You may also just pick based on your favorite aesthetic, which one of these you think looks the best. On that basis, your choice between a bracelet and a strap is going to come down to personal preference. but the strap is designed to resemble the rouleau in profile, so you're going to get a little bit of that no matter what. The strap is very flexible and pliant. You can see there are evacuations on the bottom to allow the wrist to breathe on a hot day, but also to make the strap more flexible. And like the bracelet, the strap flares beyond the lug spacing, so it has a more natural blend with the tapered cushion-like form of this case, and it really is more of a cushion case than a pure round case. The clasp here, you can see it's got a combination of polish and satin. It's a twin trigger release, so you really have to press both triggers to open it, and that's by design. It should not pop open accidentally, so Breitling has taken every measure to ensure that if you are going to be NFL rough with your watch, it's going to stay on your wrist. So, if you have a favorite team, buy your favorite team. If you have a favorite aesthetic, buy your favorite color combination. And if you want to hedge and make sure you're wearing a winner, you can get all 32 for all 32 teams in the National Football League. I realize to our European and international viewers, this may be incredibly confusing since you have a football that is played with feet and we have a football that is played with hands. What we can all agree upon is that this is a versatile watch, and whichever way you take your chronomat, the new NFL collection has something to offer. So reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing and availability details of all 32 variants.